Okay, well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys, especially about a subject that I'm very passionate about. I've been a part of the Quarterback Ranch for a little over 3 years now. Started up right after college. It was kind of an idea that Joseph and we were roommates in college and teammates, along with Chandler. And this has been something that has been in the making for probably close to 6 years, I'd say. Once I graduated, finished graduate school, moved up to Dallas, found the opportunity with a really intelligent businessman, and we were able to get this thing rolling. It started, a little background, we all played at Texas A&M Kingsville, which is a Division II program in South Texas. Very competitive conference. We were lucky enough to win a conference title in 2009. Started for 3 years down there, broke some school records, had a good receiving core, so it kind of helped just get those guys the ball. But needless to say, that experience, and Joseph kind of hit on it, it was one of those things where we weren't the most talented. We weren't, as individuals, as individual players, we weren't the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, the most talented arm. So we had to bring it every single day, every single practice, and we had to develop a skill set that would allow us to play on Saturday, or else we would have never saw the field. It was that competitive. It was that competitive of a conference. And it kind of led us to this career developing young athletes. The Quarterback Ranch started basically the day I moved up to Dallas. I was the first employee hired. It started with about 10, 12-year-olds in a public park. Probably weren't even supposed to be there. Now we're up over 3,000 athletes throughout the state of Texas and really different states throughout the country. And obviously we've progressed to this is our second time coming to Germany and doing these camps. So the process is working, the plan is working, and it's just something that we're excited to continue to build. And it's really one of those things where it feels like our own. So today I'm going to speak on developing quarterbacks. Like I said, I've been doing it since I started, working with athletes, quarterbacks from age 4 all the way to the college level. We now have a few that are playing college football, so it's really good and really humbling to see these guys where they started to where they've progressed in the last few years. Give you a little background on the Quarterback Ranch philosophy. I know it's not as prominent over here in Europe, but everybody is training quarterbacks in the United States. You got the George Whitfields of the world, the Steve Clarksons of the world that are doing a really good job. But they're doing it as individuals, which there's nothing wrong with that because they have the status and they're able to do it and they're able to make plenty of money on it. Where we're building a business, we're building a team, we're building a concept. So if something happens to myself or Joseph, the Quarterback Ranch would still live on. So we're not doing it on our own status or our own names. We're doing it as a unit. In order to do this, though, we need to be able to differentiate ourselves from the George Whitfields, from every other quarterback trainer. And in order to do this, we have to use and always find other resources to tap in to these quarterbacks, both physically and mentally, maybe even emotionally. We have to be able to do different things that separates ourselves as a business. In order to do this, and some of the resources we use, one is Eon. We've partnered with Eon Virtual Reality Systems for the last year and a half. And basically, I'll get into it a little bit later in the slides, they have a virtual reality system that allows our quarterbacks to basically be in the game, be in the video game basically. And it's like playing Madden from the helmet of the quarterback on that video game. So it's a really neat resource. As you know, nowadays kids it's all tech, it's all on the computer. And this is a way for us to relate to them a little bit better. Another resource we use is Aptist. It's a test that helps us understand our athletes a little bit better. Once again, I'll get into this. Everybody uses Huddle. We use it in a slightly different way because we don't have a team. We're not coaches on a team where we're breaking down our game film and drawing up plays and designing an offense to beat a certain school or a certain team. We use it to evaluate our athletes. So we'll send coaches to the games to film the quarterback rather than being the eye in the sky, so what we call it, where it's seeing all 22. We're zooming in and we're filming our quarterbacks from the sideline. This gives us the opportunity to understand what their game time habits are because, as I'm sure you know, it's a whole different beast going from practice when everything's controlled, everything's in sync, to game time action where you're getting blitzed. Maybe you threw an interception last series. How are you reacting? What are your game time habits? We're able to study those in our quarterbacks through huddle. And we'll get them into the office. We break down the film. And we start this at a very young age, at about 12 years old, when they start middle school football. We start breaking down film with them on huddle. Obviously, that kind of ties into the film evaluation. And then we even get into the meal planning. The nutritionist for the Dallas Cowboys, we partnered with her. Her name is Amy Goodson. She's really great at what she does. So if we have a quarterback, I tell it all the time, I was one of those guys that I could have drank 4 protein shakes a day, still had trouble gaining weight. Could have lived in the weight room, still had trouble gaining mass. Or some guys, we have some quarterbacks that are naturally big, probably should be maybe a left tackle or tight end. They have a dream of playing quarterback. We need to take weight off of them. So we use that resource for meal planning. We get them on a strict diet. If they're willing to commit to it and they're really trying to make that commitment to their careers, we have no problem doing that. We're eager to do that for our athletes. We also believe in affordable training. We feel that when you're a one-man band, so to say, you almost are obligated to overcharge. And once again, it's nothing against those guys that do it. That's just not our philosophy. That's something we will never believe in. We believe in strength in numbers. We would rather have 50 athletes on the field paying a low price than have one paying for the amount that 50 would charge. And that's how we go about it. Our goal is to touch and impact, positively impact as many young athletes, as many young quarterbacks, as many young receivers as possible. And in order to do that, we have to sometimes make sacrifices in terms of cost. And especially the first year when we're trying to get started as a business, we probably made some decisions financially as a business that any other startup company say, oh crap, that doesn't make much sense. We let a lot of people come free to get a taste. And we're still going to make sure that we're keeping our costs low and trying to get as many kids tied into our brand as possible. That's how we feel we're going to build. We believe in strength in numbers. And in order to do that, we started this foundation called Friends for Kids. Kind of our boss, Bill Webb, he's a financial manager. And he started this charity foundation, which basically allows us to go into the inner cities, the Dallas DISD, Dallas Independent School District, Houston Independent School District, some of the areas where you have a lot of talent, a lot of young athletes that just can't afford the training. You know, they're not able to, regardless of how low we make the price. So what this allows is for a donor of some sort, a lot of times it's an ex-NFL player or a current NFL player, maybe a prominent businessman in the community that then donates what is pretty much pocket change to him, maybe a couple $1,000s. That allows us to train an entire group of kids at no cost. And that allows us, once again, to get more people wearing the brand. The marketing takes care of itself when you have these athletes proud to wear your brand, and now they're going on to play big-time college football. Some will end up in the NFL here in a few years. Our philosophy, of course, is to develop young men to be leaders on and off the field. I heard it in the one earlier. Develop leaders. That's exactly what we want to do. And in order to do so, we try to convince our athletes and tell them and show them that they live in a fishbowl. It's kind of the visual that we use. We try to tell them that they're just a small little fish in a fish tank, and they can't see outside that fish tank. They don't know who's watching them. They don't know who's evaluating them. But everybody can see inside. And everybody is eager to see inside, especially at the quarterback position. Because not a college in the world is going to take a chance. There's not an NFL team that's going to draft a quarterback on a chance. They're going to evaluate, and they're going to get as much information about this athlete as they can. So in order to do that, we tell them you're in a fishbowl. And you have to understand that everything you do can be criticized and used against you. And I mean, it's a simple analogy of like, you're going shopping. You know, you might be at the mall with your buddies, laughing, cutting up, you know, bad language, whatever the case may be, maybe drunk out on the town. What if some little kid who looks up to you and knows you play for that program, what if they see you and say, man, that's such and such, he's the quarterback, oh man, he's acting like that. That could ruin a little kid. And so we try to always encourage our quarterbacks, somebody's always watching, somebody's always evaluating. We believe in constructive criticism. This goes back the Bear Bryant days of the old school coaching, cuss you out, kick your butt. That's over with in our book. You know, now we feel it's more of like the Pete Carroll age. And he's obviously doing very good things with a positive mindset. Obviously, we're a business, so we can't cuss out a little kid and expect him to come pay for a lesson the next week. So we're always believing in a positive atmosphere, a family type atmosphere at our trainings, and it's always high fives and then help them fix whatever it needs to be fixing. But we're not going to break a kid down. We're not going to hurt his feelings. We're not going to, talk down to him just to get him to buy into the training. It's still a business. We run it like a business, and we understand we need those guys coming back and buying into the brand. So that's a little background philosophy. We're going to continue it just a bit. This is a 7th grader, 12 years old, big old kid, already has a Division I scholarship from the University of North Texas. This was the day he received the scholarship offer at their camp. He's been bought in since he was about 4 years old. He's been working with us, training with us. He's obviously, a lot of it is natural ability. He's a tall, strong kid, but we have him at a level where he's understanding coverages. He's working on all the things that Quarterback Ranch provides, and it's starting to pay off in his development and his career. But also, with that being said, we believe in developing athletes. A big part of what Joseph does has nothing to do with football. A lot of it's speed and agility. A lot of it, he trains female athletes. He trains some volleyball girls, some soccer girls, guys that don't even play football. We believe in building athletes, and we encourage them to play multiple sports. Urban Meyer recently has come out and said he will not recruit a kid that only plays football. And I couldn't agree with him more. Playing basketball, playing baseball, playing soccer, that develops, you can pick something up from every one of those sports that can help translate on the football field. And we fully believe Division I quarterback at 12 years old, he's going to play basketball this year. He's going to run track. He's going to play baseball. He might even play lacrosse in the summertime. Once we get him involved, we don't say, now you need to train with us. It needs to be football year-round. We don't believe in specializing these kids at an early age. If they choose to do that in high school, maybe 16, 17 years old, that's their decision. We don't encourage it at an early age. Also, we believe in identifying the next level of success. Too often, and a lot of it has to do with money. Every dad in the United States that has a son that wants him to be a quarterback wants that kid to have a Division I scholarship, wants a free education. And there's a lot of people out there that's willing to sacrifice their name and their word to guarantee a dad, we're going to get your kid a scholarship. You train with us, your kid's going to go pro. Never will we say that. Never will we convince a parent that that's going to be the case. So what we tell them is we're going to evaluate where he's at as a quarterback, as a receiver, as an athlete, and we're going to identify the next level. If that kid's a B team 7th grade quarterback, not even the starter, we're going to say, what's the next level? Let's be the B team starter in 8th grade. And then we'll try to get up to the A team. And then we'll try to get up to varsity. But we're going to reevaluate every year we're with that kid. Instead of promising him a Division I scholarship from the day we meet him before we ever see him throw a football, we're going to see where he needs to go first. And we're going to always put benchmarks in place to make sure we're doing our job getting him to that next level. And we try to imagine it's like climbing a ladder. We're just going to get to the next rung on the ladder. We're not going to try to jump to the top before it's due. In order to do this, we must have constant feedback. Once again, we're a business. We have to communicate with the parents. We have to communicate with the coaches, and we have to communicate with the athletes. This is probably part of the, how do I say it? It's really not the best part of the job, because there's some parents, you spend an hour on the field with their kid, the dad wants to talk for 2 hours on the phone. And it's not always easy, but we understand that if we want to be successful, if we want to continue this thing and continue to see the growth that we've had these past couple years, we have to do it. It's what separates us. We're willing to do it. We're willing to pick up the phone to communicate to a college coach if we have a guy that is able. We're not going to put our word and our stamp on somebody that's not, and we're not going to try to get these kids recruited that aren't capable. But if we have a kid, an athlete that has the talent, we'll pick up the phone on his behalf every day of the week until we get that kid the right opportunity to fit him. A big part of our business, and the reason that we have been able to grow, it's a great idea. I wish I could say it was my idea. It was really Bill Webb's idea, who founded the Quarterback Ranch and hired myself and all these guys. We're an extension to the coaching staff, so where most quarterback trainers or independent contractors in this type of business, they're kind of an outside source that a lot of high school coaches don't really feel comfortable giving up their athletes, saying, oh man, you're training with such and such on the side. What if he's not teaching you the same thing I'm teaching you? As you know, there's your presentation is going to talk about it. There's 10 different ways to take a drop, yeah? We're not going to teach our way. We're going to communicate with their high school coach and find out how he's teaching it. What's going to get this kid on the field, and we'll help him develop those skill sets over the course of the offseason. And in order to do that, we have to have great communication with the coaching staffs. We have to build that trust. Part of our business is we go into the schools throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we put together an 8-week off-season program where we're training their quarterbacks, their receivers, their defensive backs twice a week in the off-season because of UIL, because of regulations. The head high school football coach is not allowed by law to be on the field with his athletes doing a football practice in the off-season. So they get us, the parents, basically the coach backs us and says, my kids need to be doing this. The parents still pay for it, for the training, and now we're putting together off-season programs for all these schools. We're at about 8 different school districts in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it's just continuing to grow. We're almost to a point where our staff's not even big enough to supply all of it, so we've almost had to hit the brakes on going out and getting more. But it's something that we have not been told no. We've had coaches a little bit skeptical at first, saying, well, how can I trust you to know my offense and not give that information somewhere else, because you're also working with another school in the same area that they're going to be playing against. So it has taken a little bit of time to build that trust, but once we show what we can provide on the field, we've never had a coach say, I don't see any value in that. So that's a big part of our business and really something that has set us apart from other trainers in the Dallas area. We're a team concept. Obviously, this concept helps when you're able to hire teammates to be a part of it. Like I said, not only us 3 play together in college, 2 more of our coaches that are on staff played with us also in college, our DB coach and another wide receiver coach. So it's easy to have that team concept and that team environment. But with this being said, this picture right here, I mean, these kids are from 10 different schools in Dallas. But once they come to the quarterback ranch, once they come to our training, it's a team. And in order to do that, we have to give responsibilities to the older guys. The 17, 18-year-olds, you got to take care of the 9, 10-year-olds that are maybe first starting out. Kind of that big brother type environment. Obviously, we feel that champions are not born, they're built. We've seen it. We've seen guys that have showed up, whether it be quarterback, receiver, defensive back, and you think to yourself, man, maybe he might need to try a different sport. He sticks with it. He buys in. He comes consistently. They change over time. They're building their skill set. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. Everybody obviously wants instant gratification. Not in this business. It's just not possible. I mean, in order to do that, in order to physically change an athlete from what you would call a scrub to an actual player, I mean, it takes the speed and agility training. It takes the group quarterback ranch training. It takes a couple individual trainings a month. But if they are willing to buy in, the process does work. Part of our training focus at the quarterback ranch, everybody wants to know what makes a good quarterback. What's the secret sauce? What is it? Is it footwork? Is it accuracy? Is it leadership? Is it coachability? Is it speed? Is it arm strength? It's everything. It's combined. And we don't have the magic dust. We don't. It's different for every single individual. It's different. It was different for myself. It was different for the next quarterback in line. Nobody has a secret sauce. Nobody can claim that they have it. But we do know that there is no substitute for hard work. We do know that if you come on a weekly basis, if you buy in, if you get the virtual reality, if you do the film study, if you come to the group training, it will pay off. And really, that's the only thing that is proven, is that you must work hard in order to get the results that you want. Something we preach about every day, I was giving some kid push-ups out there today, it's ball security. Nothing, and I had to find out the hard way a few times in college, nothing will get you on the bench faster than scoring points for the other team. Ball security is number 1. Take care of the football. Talked about it last week. Sometimes they call those guys what? What do they call them, Joe? It's like a curse word to call a quarterback a what? A game manager, right? It's almost like you take offense to it. Man, he's just a game manager. Call me that. That's a great thing to be called. That means you're smart with the football. That means you take care of the football. That means you run the offense. You're not a risk taker. That's fine. take care of the football, ball security. Obviously, when you're carrying it, running with the football, it's high and tight. We teach it all the time. Have your chin, basically your fist by your chin. Carrying the football, always in the pocket. It's 2 hands. I've had quarterbacks do push-ups till their arms get sore just for a bad habit of taking 2 hands off the football. We can't have it. You cannot, I mean, it's the biggest stat in football. Winning and losing football games comes down to turnover differential. The team with more possessions has a chance to score more points. That team, most of the time, is going to win the game. We obviously also feel that it needs to be competitive training. So we'll get some parents sometimes or some athletes that say that we just want one-on-one. Just player, coach, on the field, nobody else. That's fine with us. Costs a little bit more, obviously, because of value. But we never encourage an athlete to only train that way. We want him in a group with his peers, competing with guys his age and maybe even older, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the environment he's going to play in. That's a high school environment. Only one quarterback plays. There's probably 4 or 5 on a roster. When I got to college, I was number 5 on a depth chart of 5. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I doing? Maybe I should go play baseball. But it's that competitive atmosphere that says, I'm either going to wake up and handle business and do everything I can to jump, to get to that next level, to be number 4 by next week, to be number 3 by the start of next year, to be the guy in 1 year. And that's what it takes. It's competitive training. You've got to find out who your guys are. If your quarterback's not a competitor, you don't have a quarterback. Find somebody else. Put your best competitor at that position. Regardless of anything else, you need to have your best guy leading the pack, basically. The main thing we appreciate, and it's one of the things that we love most about coming over here to Germany, is coachability. I don't know really how to put it without maybe throwing shade on some of our athletes back home. But one of the best things that we love about European football is their eagerness to be coached. They'll stand at attention, they'll look you in the eye, and they'll say, yes, sir, when you're telling them they're doing something wrong, and thank you for telling me. We love that as coaches. We wish that every one of our kids back home, we wish we could show them film. Look how they do it. And they're not doing it for scholarship money. They're doing it because it's a hobby sport. It's a growing sport, yes, but it's still a hobby for most of these German athletes. But their ability and their eagerness to be coached is something that it's something you can't coach. You can't convince an athlete to be coachable. It's like it's something within them. And that's something that as trainers, as coaches, we appreciate the most. And that's when you have an athlete that's willing and wanting to be coached, that's when you see the big jumps in their abilities. Because they're always absorbing your information. They're not just taking it in one ear, out the other. I tell my quarterbacks, you have to look like a quarterback before you can be a quarterback. You have to fake it till you make it. And this is something that's real important, especially at this position, because it's not just you. There's only one quarterback, but now you've got 10 other guys just on that offense looking up to you. So if you don't have that self-confidence, if you don't act the part and convince everybody else that you're the guy, you might as well just hit the bench, because there's going to be somebody that is at least going to act like it, and let everything else catch up. The training, the practice, the reps, the experience, that'll all catch up, but you got to look like the dude first. So always look the part. Once again, someone's always watching. We tell our quarterbacks all the time, we tell our athletes, it's a lot easier to get scratched off a list than it is to stay on it in terms of scholarships, in terms of depth charts in high school. The moment you do something wrong, the moment you do something that doesn't put yourself on top in the coach's eye, it's easy to get scratched. It's really hard to stay on. So you really got to make sure you're always doing the right thing all the time. Big part of our training focus is keeping your eyes up. So many quarterbacks play, especially when the drills are new, whether it be the ladder, whether it be cone drills. They get what I call thinking eyes. They're thinking about it. They're watching their feet. Never in a game have I ever had to look at my feet for something. That's all muscle memory. The game is played downfield, reading defenses, seeing the coverage. So always eyes up. We believe in ground-up development, because we get some 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to throw the ball very well. They're not going to be able to have much velocity and complete 10-yard, 15-yard passes. So we try to develop their lower half first, their core strength and functional strength first, develop good mechanics, and allow their maturity, allow their puberty to hit, and next thing you know, they'll be able to do that. But what we don't want to do is get a young kid and sacrifice mechanics just so he could throw the ball downfield. We'll sacrifice completions and arm strength now for the right mechanics and let his body catch up to him. So we're always ground up mentality in terms of developing our quarterbacks. Where Joseph comes in terms of our quarterback development is the core strength and the functional strength. The speed and agility stuff, the strength and conditioning that really helps these quarterbacks understand. I mean, if you watch Drew Brees, you watch some of his off-season workouts, he's not in there bench pressing and curling a bunch of weight. It's all core, it's all flexibility, he's able to move his body and get maximum output out of his body, and it all starts with the core strength. That's where you see velocity. You want your kid to throw the ball harder? Start working out his core, not his arm, and see what happens. So part of the fundamentals, I mean, I could talk about him all day. He's the best in my opinion. He does it at a height that's not prototypical. He's about 5'10", 5'11" on his tippy toes. But he's the best at what he does. He really is. And he's a Texas boy, so it helps to cheer for him, from Austin, Texas. But in my opinion, and it was probably the way I learned as well, I'm always encouraging visual reminders. It's hard to tell a quarterback, keep your elbow up, without giving him a visual of how or why. So these are some of the visual reminders we use. If you were around at the training today, you probably heard most of them, I'd say. Talk about 3 cameras. In order to be accurate, if I'm throwing to the camera, first camera's on my left shoulder. As a quarterback, that always has to point at the target first. I can't expect to be accurate throwing from here. I have to point my left camera at the target. That's camera number 1. As I throw the ball, my second camera is right on the middle of my chest. That has to hit the target. As I finish, follow through, my third camera is on my right shoulder. All three cameras need to take a picture of your target if you want to be accurate on a consistent basis. I saw one of the quarterbacks in particular today kept dropping the football. So another visual reminder I was telling him, imagine your elbows are on a dinner table. And we're quarterbacks out here and we're not at the dinner table, so we don't need manners. We could put our elbows on the table. So if I'm resting my elbows on the table as a quarterback, I have nowhere to go but up with the football. I'm not going to be able to have a long wind up, drop the ball down below the table because there's a physical object there, imaginary of course. But put the elbows on the table, ball's going to come up and out a lot quicker. These quarterbacks, these are some of our high school guys, they're doing a pretty good job of it during one of our warm-up sessions. One of the ones I love, and I learned this once I got into the business. I wish I would have probably knew this a little bit more into detail while I was playing, but I just say eat the sandwich. And all that's referring to is my left hand if I'm a right-handed quarterback. When I go to throw this ball, in order to remain compact in my delivery, back when we were younger, first learning how to throw a football, it was all about getting velocity. So we were taught rip through, and next thing you know, your left hand's down here somewhere by your hip. Now we talk to these quarterbacks about eating the sandwich, and it's more so to remain compact. When they follow through, they want to keep that left hand right in front of their face, eat a sandwich, even after you throw the football. And what that allows, if I rip this open and the ball's still back here, I've lost this whole front side of potential power that can help create velocity into my throw. But if I eat the sandwich and stay closed off, and stay closed off as long as possible, now my left side, my front side, and my back side are more in sync. So now I'm coming through the zone of the throw basically all at the same time, rather than go, and now you're working in two different segments. You want to eat the sandwich, keep it all closed off, and now you're getting all your momentum, maximum momentum towards your target. Said this one out there a lot, sit in the saddle. Once again, all this is doing is a visual reminder for keeping a wide base. You could tell a kid till you're blue in the face, wide base, wide base, wide base. But if you tell them you're riding a horse, you're sitting in a saddle, naturally they have this visual that there's a horse. They're riding a horse, so now they must sit in the saddle. No matter what they're doing, their base is staying wide. And now they're able to get more power into their throws. Call my chest, call my pecs headlights. Can't play the quarterback position with your headlights facing the ground. So a lot of these kids that may be weak in the core, maybe some of your quarterbacks, tend to have this slouched over look. Now their headlights are facing the ground. All it is referring to is a big, proud chest. Keep your chest up, keep your headlights up, see what you're working with. Same thing goes with staying suited up. I tell them, imagine you're in a suit and tie. You're not in a jersey. You're not just in a t-shirt. This is how I act. This is how I'm chilling in a t-shirt. If I'm in a suit and tie, once again, I have a proud chest. My tie is on. I feel good. I look good. So always stay suited up. I think he's doing a pretty good job of it. Big chest. He's kind of slouching a little bit. But visuals. Joseph talks about it. Beat the drum. Whenever we're working footwork drills, a lot of our receivers, a lot of our skill positions always want to beat the drum with our hands to get the feet going. That's a simple one, not as necessary for quarterbacks because most of the time we're holding the football. Talk about a bucket of water. Imagine you're balancing a bucket of water on the top of your head. And I want quarterbacks to have this idea in their head from the time they walk on the field. Whatever drill we're doing, you have to remain balanced and keep your posture upright. If you're suited up, if you have a bucket of water on your head, as soon as you go to throw and these shoulders drop, that bucket of water is going to fall. So you need to have that visual reminder. You just drop the bucket. Keep the bucket of water, throw, and be able to maintain that balance and keep the bucket of water on the top of your head. Once again, just simple visual reminders. And in my opinion, the most important one in terms of accuracy is an ankle eye. I'm right-handed, so the inside of my right ankle, that little bone, I just imagine it's an eyeball. In order for me to be accurate, if I'm throwing to Coach Hill, I need to point the ankle eye at him. I'm throwing over here into the computer, I need that ankle eye to point at my target. At the end of the day, all it is doing is creating straight line throws. You can't expect to be accurate on a consistent basis if your ankle eye is pointed this way and you're trying to throw the ball here. Aaron Rodgers can do it, but he's pretty dang gifted, and he can't do it on a consistent basis if he's not flipping his hips, pointing his ankle eye, lining that up to your throws. If I was going to tell any of your quarterbacks anything, that's the most important one in my opinion. That is a great visual reminder for turning everything into a straight line throw. Moving on to the throwing motion. Once again, we talked about the wide base. That is a must. That's where your power comes from. You're not a great athlete. For one, if you get hit in the pocket with your feet in here, you're going down every single time. If you have a wide, strong base, you're going to be able to stand up. You're going to be able to take some hits, get thrown off, and still be able to make completions. And of course, that's where all your power comes from. I already mentioned the 3 cameras, 1, 2, 3. Core strength is obviously more important than arm strength. I don't care how much my quarterbacks can curl. I care what type of core workouts he's doing in the off season. That is way more important. That creates functional strength. I already talked about it with the eating the sandwich. You want a compact, powerful motion. You don't want a long, drawn-out motion that's trying to create a long release. That's baseball. That's like a pitcher in baseball. Everything's stretched out, reaching towards home plate. Where quarterbacking, we talk about it, it's like throwing in a phone booth. And most of my kids nowadays have never even seen a phone booth. Now it's all cell phones and they don't even know what I'm talking about. But imagine the pocket, especially in games, is very tight. You don't have much room to move. So you have to be able to create velocity, create energy in what I call a phone booth, a small area where you're getting all your energy without overstriding, without being long through your release. I guarantee you get here and start throwing here, you're going to break some fingers on helmets. You got to be able to remain compact, keep everything tight, develop energy. I think Tom Brady is probably the best at doing that, throwing in tight spaces. You got to be able to transfer your weight. One of the drills we were doing today, we're getting these quarterbacks to backpedal as fast as they can, blow the whistle. Now they got to flip their ankle eye to their target and drive back through the throw. A lot of young kids especially, because they're not developed through their core, have a lot of trouble doing this. And it ends up, blow the whistle, trying to make a throw. They're not able to put a foot in the ground, drive back through their target. So a lot of the training that we do, we'll get them on a medicine ball. They'll take a step back, throw a medicine ball, a weighted ball to a wall. Bounces back, step back. All this stuff is really just working on that weight transfer. Big part of throwing a football. With that, you got to be able to transfer your weight, but once again, you're in a tight space, you still have to have a balanced finish. So a lot of times I'll get my quarterbacks to throw, and I'll come by with a pad or just my hands, and I'll try to knock them off. It happens a lot in the pocket. It's happened a lot in the game. You throw, you get hit off your spot. you got to be able to have balance. So yes, you want them transferring that weight through the throw, but you don't want them way out in front of themselves. They have to still have balance in their finish. Pretty cool lesson I learned. We work with Zach Robinson, who played for the New England Patriots for a while, and he said that for Tom Brady, to this day, Tom Brady is going to go down as top 1 or 2 quarterbacks to ever play football by the time he retires. In my opinion, the opinion of others. To this day, every training camp, after every single throw, he goes through a 3-point checklist. A lot of kids, their minds are blown the fact that Tom Brady does this after every rep, after every play in preseason and in training camp. But his checklist goes something like, he throws it, and in order to make sure he has a balanced finish, he looks down at the ground. If he's looking at grass, he was too far ahead of himself. If he throws it and he's looking at the top of his leg, he didn't get through it enough. He didn't get through his throw. So he has to look down, he has to look at the top of his foot. If he's looking straight down, seeing the top of his foot, that's one check off the checklist. The other check off the checklist is his left hand. He makes sure he's eating the sandwich. So if you watch Tom Brady in the preseason, he's very exaggerated. He's almost right here where it kind of looks awkward. He's making sure he's eating the sandwich. His third point of his checklist is he makes sure his right hand is in his left pocket. And he does that meticulously after every single rep. So that just kind of says something about him as an athlete. He's still trying to evolve. He's still trying to get better. And that's why he's going to play well into his 40s. We talk about a quick high release. I was talking to a quarterback today. It's about showing me the letter C. This kid's doing a really good job of it right here. Coach Joe. Letter C. When you're throwing that football, you want to show the letter C. That means, and all it means your elbow is above your shoulder when you go to make the throw. That's good posture on the throw. That's good mechanics. If you're showing a letter U in your hand, now your elbow is dropped below your shoulder. You have a tendency to sail the football. That's a lot of trouble over the middle. If you start leaving that ball high, start to lose some friends very quickly that way. So always show the letter C. Keep that elbow above the shoulder. Quick game fundamentals. We worked on it today. Shane Bichelle, he's a starter as a true freshman at the University of Texas. This was when we were working with him in high school in Arlington in the Dallas area. So he's doing big things. Our quick game fundamentals, what we talk about is just point and shoot with the ankle eye. If I'm throwing a 5-yard hitch to my right, can't expect to throw it very well like this. I need to drop step, point my ankle eye, shoot the gun. Very easy to my left because my ankle eye is already out there for the most part. Drop step, fire it. All that small drop step is there for is to separate us just less than a yard, really, about half a yard from the line of scrimmage. So if we're taking our snap at 5 yards, heels at 5, that drop step allows us for our first read to get covered. He's running the 5-yard stop. He's covered. Now I gather to my second read, and now at least I'm not getting pressure from my own center. The linemen work back. You want to make sure you give yourself room to get to your third or fourth read on a quick game. In the 3-step, we talk about 1 big, 2 little. The 1 big, which we work on time and time again, is to separate ourselves from the line of scrimmage. So when we're taking our 3-step drop, we're getting as much out of that first step as we can. 1 is to get you away from the defense. Buy yourself some time. The 2 little, 2, 3, all that's there to do is get your momentum and your weight back through your throw. Once again, if guys are doing 3 big, it ends up 1, 2, 3. They lost the bucket of water. They're not level. And now they can't get back through the throw. And once again, it ends up something like, ugh. And you see it all the time, especially with young kids. So 1 big, 2 little, whether it's off the stick, whether it's off the hitch. Always, I think it said it probably 3 times already in the PowerPoint, wide base. You got to sit in the saddle. You got to maintain base. That's where all your power comes from. So a big part, like I talked about at the very beginning, a way we differentiate ourselves, if we just had kids on the field training, teaching them how to throw footballs, there's not enough hours in the day for us to be successful as a business. So we got to help these kids. There's probably 50, 60 kids in here working on their football IQ, trying to better understand the game without being on the field, football knowledge. At a young age, 6th grade, 12, 11, 12, 13 years old, we have them understanding the difference between man versus zone by relating it to their eyes, zone eyes versus man eyes. To be honest, this was something I didn't even understand until I was well into high school. And it blew my mind the first time my coach told it to me. I was like, man eyes versus zone eyes. Man coverage, the DB is going to have man eyes. If the receiver I'm guarding is in front of me, I'm going to be looking at that receiver because I have him man on man. Zone eyes, DB is more so playing the quarterback along with the receiver. They're playing a zone. So if this is the receiver I'm guarding, I'm going to have one eye on him, but my eyes will also still be in the backfield, back and forth. Those are zone eyes. They're trying to read you as well. Good thing about zone eyes, that's when you can start to fool the DBs. You can use that to your advantage because you know they're peeking in at you. Obviously, we give these young kids tips. Pre-snap is everything, especially at a young age, at the middle school, early high school level, before the DBs get so fast that they're able to really start trying to confuse you. At a young age, even in high school, they have to, for the most part, give you an idea of what coverage they're in. Obviously, man is easy. Everybody's manned up. They're going to bring some blitzes. You get man coverage, you get no deep in the safeties, meaning there's no safeties past 10 yards back. You better pick your matchup now and you better go with it. Usually it'd be my tallest receiver on a fade, or if I got a linebacker trying to cover my slot, I'm going to hit a quick slant. You pick up matchup and you live with it. The good thing about man, though, if you can beat the blitz, if you can avoid the contact initially, everybody else is running with their receivers. Good time to scramble. If you could teach your quarterbacks, especially a lot of these European quarterbacks, they're usually your best runners as well. Teach them. If they see man coverage, be a little bit quicker to escape the pocket and run. They have a lot better chance of gaining yards because, once again, the DB's following the man with his eyes. Nobody's necessarily watching the quarterback unless they have a spy on. Cover one's easy. Once again, man eyes with a free safety. Still, take your matchup as long as you're not feeding it to the free safety. Take your matchup and live with it. Cover two, a little bit more complex. Once again, still very simple. Pre-snap, most of the safeties need to get to the deep halves. So they have to be outside the hash. A lot of times I'll tell my quarterbacks, try to judge or gauge the difference between the corners and the safeties. You got a corner in cover two is usually within 5 yards, outside of his receiver, looking inside. Safeties are a little bit deeper, and they tend to be outside the hash. So that's a very good tip. Identifying cover two, there's a bigger difference between the corners and the safeties. Safeties are outside the hash, want to attack the middle of the field, want to attack the deep outs, about like 15 yards, sideline routes, and deep middle. Because you're expecting cover two, they call it Tampa two, when they expect a middle linebacker who's one of the slowest to cover the middle of the field. It's not going to happen with a good slot receiver. Then cover three, obviously deep thirds, deep thirds, deep thirds. You got safety. The middle of the field is now closed. Corners have given a little more cushion, probably at about 7 yards. College, we got a lot of roll into cover three. So if you see a little bit different depths of the safeties and you're expecting cover three, you can expect one of those guys to roll. Obviously, you want to hit the seams, hit the stops, hit the speed outs, hit the curl routes, attack cover three. If you get cover three, you should lick your chops. It's the best, it's the easiest to attack in the air. Just basically you're manipulating a safety. Get the safety here, hit the seam backside, do a bunch of end zone dances. Cover four looks a lot like cover two, except the safeties will now be on or inside the hash. They don't have as big of a zone to cover. It's just deep quarters in the secondary. We call that the shell of the defense. So they're on or inside the hash. Now a lot of times the corners' depths are about even with the safeties. Safeties have a little bit more run responsibility. Once again, now that's probably in terms of an open coverage, meaning the middle of the field is open, cover four is a really good opportunity to get over the top of those safeties because now they're at about 12 to 15 yards. They have run responsibilities a lot of times. Give them a little play fake, send a slot receiver at that play side safety with a dig. You got a post behind it. We'd run that. If we're playing a cover four team, we call it Gator, we'd run dig, post 6, 7 times a game and just take our shots until we hit it, until I hit it. But those are all things that we're teaching at a real young age. Those are things that I wish I knew at a younger age. Like I said, wasn't necessarily coached it at the time. Really wish I had those tips to pre-snap. Those are things I was learning as a high schooler, even into college, that I wish it was second nature by the time I got there. Things would have been a lot easier post-snap if you have those ideas pre-snap. This is a picture of us actually training on the virtual reality. I was talking about how we differentiate ourselves. The virtual reality system is a big part of it. Kids love it because this kid is 13 years old, and he probably plays a lot of video games, probably really good on the computer, and now he's able to train for football specific to his playbook. We're able to install his playbook on a computer, and he's able to run his plays mentally without ever picking up a football. So he's staying sharp, he's understanding the game, he's reading safeties, he's understanding coverages, he's counting the box. Like I said, we can install any offense, any defense. It's even to the point where we can adjust the speed of the receivers. So say this kid, which we didn't have to for this kid's age, but say we have a college quarterback and he has a receiver, his Z receiver is a 4.4 guy. On the system, we can adjust that receiver's speed to work the timing of the system. And it's kind of some grunt work for us as coaches. It takes a little while to install the offenses, but once it's in there, it's a go. And you can install any offense, any defense, and you're getting game time scenarios from the classroom setting. Then, like I mentioned, the Aptis test. It's basically brain games. It's a 10-game test on an iPad. And what it does, it allows us as coaches to better understand our athletes and how they learn. So as learners, you yourself, you're either a visual learner, an oral learner, a verbal learner, or a physical learner. Whether you can hear it and learn it, whether you have to see it, maybe you have to do it in order to actually learn it. We get these kids on an Aptis test when we first start working with them. And now as coaches, it allows us to better understand them, how to better reach them. So if you have a kid who's a visual learner and all you're doing is telling him, and not showing him, he's not going to relate. He's not going to pick up the information in the depth that he should. So it's a very simple test. It takes less than 30 minutes. We get the results. The results go beyond the football field. We're able to get one as trainers. The athlete is able to get his results. We give a copy to the parents, and we give a copy to a counselor of some sort. So maybe this is more so for our college athletes. You give this to his guidance counselor. Now he's able to better pick classes based on professors' learning styles that match up with his learning capabilities. So once again, it's just a differentiator for us as a business that allows us to better understand our athletes. The tests report back your confidence level according to the test: confidence, focus, self-control, detail, competitiveness, simplicity, and grit. So we feel these are all characteristics of not only a good football player, but a good athlete. You gotta have these things to a certain degree to be successful in the sport. This test just allows us to identify to what degree each of those things are. Yes, please.
Can you give us? I'm sorry. Can you give us an example of like one of the questions?
Okay. Yeah. So basically, you have these stylus pens. So two stylus pens, and it's all done on an iPad. Okay. So the test gives you directions. We all took it as coaches to get our results, so now we can better match with the players. So which players think like which coach, and we can send them that way. But the first test on the Aptis is very simple. Draw a football field with the stylus pen. Draw a football field from a bird's eye view, and do the yard marks, the end zones, the goalpost, the numbers, and the sidelines. And you have 2.5 minutes to complete it. So you get maybe a very visual guy, a very artistic guy. He might spend most of that 2.5 minutes, drawing the hashes, doing the uprights real perfect. You got somebody who's real confident in his Aptis results, who is really just about processing what it says. I mean, he's going to do only what it says. It'll be a square, it'll be a basic football field, but it all relates back to how he defined the directions and how quickly he completed it. So it's all timed. Like I said, you get 2.5 minutes to complete it, but it's testing how fast you do it. If you take all 2.5 minutes, you're relatively slow and detailed. Whereas if you take 30 seconds to draw a football field and do it, you're pretty, what's one of the things? You're pretty confident and you're competitive because you're trying to finish as fast as you can. Another one is like It's a pretty good one. They use like a route system, like a route tree basically, and it says, draw this route going this way. Now flip it upside down, draw the same route. So it's basically brain games, and I can tell you firsthand, it's pretty, like some of the tests get pretty frustrating. I mean, because you're like, how do I flip it, draw it upside down, same route? Like, you get pretty frustrated with working with the pen, and it's basically collecting data on each stroke of the pen. And it comes back with very objective information for the coaches and athletes. Don't necessarily know what all goes into it and you know, the software that's behind it, but very neat. I mean, have you ever heard of, like, not quite to the amount, but what's the brain games? I'm drawing a blank right now. Lumosity. It's like brain games that kind of help work with memory and focus and things like that. Similar to that, but it's all quick and it's only 10 of them. So you're done within 30 minutes. But yeah, those are just like the simple examples. And those are directed for our business. So everything's kind of football related. Like there's one when you have both stylus and there's footballs like just bouncing off, like kind of like the pong game, and you're having to take your stylus and like it has a color. So your left stylus is red, your right stylus is blue, and you're trying to like meet up and stop the football. So once you hit the football with the stylus, you know, it disappears, another one comes, and you're just basically all over the place trying to get these things both-handed. So they're kind of built for our sport, but if you were to do it with just a normal student, the aptitude test is a little bit different, you know, if they're not a football player. Like I said, it gets you, one of them to draw a football player. Make sure you draw his shoulder pads, his face mask, his numbers. So if you were to follow the directions, just as it says, you'd really only draw like half a player. You know, you draw his number, you draw a shoulder pad, you draw his thigh pads, but most people, however they define the directions, they're going to draw a whole player, do the helmet. Some people will be a lot more detailed in their drawing of that athlete. But it's very, I mean, we were probably all a little bit skeptical. We got these guys, they pitched us, we partnered with them. We were all a little skeptical, like, yeah, right, how's that going to give us any like valuable information? We all took the test and we were, okay, you know, that's pretty interesting. We got the results. And the coolest thing about it was, as coaches, as athletes, we're looking at these results and like, damn, that's me. Like, that's exactly right. The entire SEC is using it. Texas A&M will do it to any kid. They will make sure any kid that they're recruiting takes it, because they're not going to recruit a certain type of kid that can't learn in this type of fashion based on their offense and defensive schematics. The NFL is using it at all their East-West Shrine game, their Senior Bowls. They're making every athlete take this aptitude test. And what it allows is basically the general managers, the presidents of these NFL organizations, they're able to better understand what type of athlete they're going to draft based on these objective results that take 30 minutes to find out. It's just a very good resource for basically all parties. So if there's any more questions, I'd love to answer. Yeah.
I have another question. Can you explain me the part with the eat the sandwich again?
Eat the sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically all it's doing is convincing my quarterbacks to keep this left hand for a right-handed quarterback right in front of their face. And like I was saying, when I was young, it was all about ripping the elbow. Try to get as much velocity, rip the elbow and throw the ball. And this hand, if they had a sandwich in it, it's like feeding the dog. But now if you talk about you're eating the sandwich, when I go to make this throw, I'm just keeping my left hand right in front of my face the entire time. So it's just a visual of what we call staying closed, closing off your front side. So now when you throw, I mean, you go watch Tom Brady, he's in a game, he throws the ball, and his left hand is still right here in front of the face. It's just trying to create a compact motion. Once again, you don't have a lot of space, so this is not very compact. That's real compact.
Why do I do this? So I understand the motion, so
Yeah.
the hand always here, but I didn't understand why I should do this and don't swing the arm.
Once again, there's not a lot of space to work.
It's only in
Well,
case of the space.
That, and also, just more about power. So how I can kind of best relate it, if I was going to throw a medicine ball as far as I could, I'm not going to extend my arms and throw a medicine ball, right? That's what we call long. That's not very compact. I can get more power if I stay compact and punch it from right there. Same thing throwing a football. I'm not going to have as much velocity out here as I'm going to have right there. And now all that velocity, all that power is being transferred from the feet through the core. And now if you eat the sandwich and keep that front side closed, it's all coming through at one time. Kind of like I was trying to get across. If I throw this open and my arm's still back here with the football, basically I can cut myself in half and say that's wasted. I've wasted all that power because the ball's still back here. If I eat the sandwich and keep my front shoulder closed, now as I go to step, what I call the zone, that's the throwing zone. When I'm releasing that ball, my front side and my back side are now getting through that zone at the same time rather than two separate times. 1, 2. Now it's 1, and it's a lot more powerful.
I got it.
Okay, good. Any other? Yeah.
What would be a main core exercise that you could recommend for the strength?
At a young age, might sound lame, I'd say push-ups, sit-ups. Push-ups, core exercises, planks, always good. Once we get to the older guys, our high school, our college athletes, we kill medicine balls. Find a brick wall, find a 20-pound medicine ball, and do that till they're, because the obliques are very important. We tell them, I don't care what your beach body looks like in terms of these six-pack. I want your obliques strong. I want your back strong. I want your chest strong. So anytime you're working a medicine ball, anytime you're working band exercises, one of the best videos, you can find it on YouTube, is one of Drew Brees' off-season workouts. And he's basically in a push-up or a plank position. Even, you know what a Bosu ball is? It's like the board with that rubber ball in the bottom. So you're having to use the core strength to balance yourself. And what he does, some gyms have them. You basically put your feet in these stirrups, and now you're balancing yourself on that medicine ball, and you're basically tucking your knees, doing the side planks. There's one of Drew Brees that, I mean, I got tired just watching it. But anything he does, I'm a fan of, and all he worries about is core, sledgehammers on the tires, all obliques. You can get very creative with it, but it's not just pss, pss, pss. That we do that before spring break. This is more here. You know, the was it posterior core? Anybody? Yes?
How do you coach to plan your front foot straight into the target?
Good. I had this question earlier today by a coach. It also goes back to keeping the front side closed. I want to keep this front side closed as long as possible. Back when I was young, it was open the front foot, point the big toe at the target. What I teach, I kind of refer to it as a gun. I am a gun. I refer to that left foot as a trigger. So I cannot complete the throw. I cannot fire the gun without first trigger stepping. But I don't want my trigger step to open up and lose my front side hip. With that being said, there's some very good quarterback coaches out there online, and I've seen them in person, that do teach. I don't. I teach driving the pinky toe. If I'm throwing to you, I want to drive my pinky toe along with my shoulder to my target. Once again, I'm trying to keep my front hip closed as long as possible. So now when I'm in my zone, now it's coming through. So it's small step, not a big overstride, because that causes my elbow to drop. So it's small step, pinky toe, rotate on it. So really drive through. Your toes end up facing the target, but not right now, more so now as I'm throwing. Your toes are rotating as you're getting through the zone. Basically, now that aligns your toes with your front shoulder, and that's all in line now with the back side. Once again, you're trying to get everything through in one optimal motion rather than 1, 2, 3. Just tries to remain more compact, a little more powerful.
The direction at the end, like camera one.
At the end, yeah, at the end, you're pointing that third camera. Now your toes have rotated to your target. Yeah, definitely. Anything? Good questions. Thank you. I appreciate them. Thank y'all. This is email, our website, our social media.